For decades, we've been taking flight to an ever-increasing number of destinations. But as we migrate towards Brexit, there are warnings of turbulence ahead. If we're not careful, could we find ourselves, well, flightless?
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here.
The boss of Ryanair has been vocal about the risks to our getaways.
There is a real prospect, and we need to deal with this, that there is going to be no flights between the UK and Europe for a period of weeks, months beyond March 2019.
He wants the UK to stay in Europe's existing Open Skies Agreement that allows planes to fly freely. He says we're running out of time to negotiate an alternative. The industry that makes the planes has its worries too. Aeromet manufactures 45,000 fuel connectors for Airbus each year. From here in Rochester, they go to Wales to become part of Wings, then on to Toulouse, where the planes are assembled. The aerospace industry has some familiar concerns. It wants hassle-free trade with no tariffs or delays for complex international supply chains. But there is a more fundamental problem. The safety regime that underpins everything from parts to planes to pilots to maintenance is European, and that has the potential to ground the industry. That safety regime is the work of the European Aviation Safety Agency. The boss of the UK's aerospace industry body says it's vital to stay in it.
We are very clear that we wish to remain a member of the European Aviation Safety Agency, and we don't believe that there is a viable alternative that can be up and running in a reasonable period of time.
ADS reckons it could take 5 to 10 years and 300 extra staff to equip the UK's Civil Aviation Authority to take over. And we may still need a transition period where we stay very close to the EU indeed.
When we cease to be an EU member, we need to have in place a whole new set of international agreements. So for us, the transition period is important, and it's important that during that period we remain an EU member. Really, it's about providing our international colleagues, particularly the US, with confidence that the new regulatory regime that we are going to operate, is capable of meeting the high safety and security standards that they require. The challenge is we don't know what that is going to look like.
So how complicated is it to secure our freedom to fly? Countries like Norway or Switzerland are part of the European Safety Agency, but outside the EU. But they also have bilateral agreements with places like the US. Without a safety regime that's recognised by the rest of the world, the UK could find itself left on the ground. This isn't just general griping about the cost and disruption of Brexit. It's a very specific problem. And it's not one that can be solved just by the UK and Europe. It requires input from regulators around the world. By some estimates, that work could take 18 months to make sure that we can keep flying after departure from the EU. And that's even if we stay part of the European safety body. The clock is most definitely ticking. The head of America's Federal Aviation Administration said in June that discussions with the UK government had started, but he added they were complicated and time-consuming by their very nature. And he warned,
"It is important to keep these time constraints in mind and to not get sidetracked into an uncomfortable situation in which a missed deadline results in an interruption of service."
Sticking with the European regulator should make these conversations simpler. But staying a member of the European Safety Agency may not fly politically.
The main issue is the financial contribution that would still need to be made within and into a European establishment. There's also the issue of oversight of the EASA framework and the rules, which currently sits with other European institutions and predominantly the ECJ.
This is where aerospace's problems start to sound familiar again. An important EU body with European Court of Justice oversight, a respected European rulebook that actually UK expertise has played a substantial part in devising, and a deadline to figure out what might or could take its place.
If we don't have a transition arrangement, and if we aren't a member of the EU as part of that transition arrangement, then we have chaos, because we don't have a system to ensure that our products are safe and secure to fly, and a regime that is acknowledged around the world.
For now, the industry is in limbo, in the departure lounge, destination unknown.